Greetings and welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a sometimes funny, trying to be smart podcast covering all things new and classic Trek. I'm mad, and we'll talk about it later. And I'm your Captain Mariah Gossett. With me on the view screen, we have
Clyde Haynes. High five. Somebody. Okay.
This is not. It's not Paul to touch it.
Hey, it's Mike. I just want to remind everyone that I was early and all of you were on time.
Prime loophole.
Yes, tonight we are talking about probably the most controversial episode of the series thus far in my mind. Also the one everyone got mad about when a preview came out at Comic-Con, and I'm still mad, so it didn't change a thing for me. Welcome to our discussion of the problematically titled 4.5 Vulcans, directed by Jordan Canning, written by Dana Horgan and Henry Alonzo Myers, who I have a beef with now perpetually, and we'll talk about it some more. I'm going to pass it over to someone who's not mad to tell you about how to engage with the Patreon, where maybe you can talk about your feelings about this episode.
Hey, I'm Paul to touch it, and I'm here to remind you guys to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. All links are at StarTrekPod.co. And if you would like to hear some rants, consider joining our Patreon and get access to our Slack community. Paul Satachet.
Indeed. That was your message brought to you by Paul Satachet.
That's right.
Clyde, can you tell people if they're hanging out with us live in YouTube? Yep, in YouTube, on YouTube, how they can engage in the chat if there's something they want us to pay attention to.
Hey, as long as you're not screaming at me, have a great time and type capital P, capital O, capital D, capital pod in the chat, and we will take a look at your musings, your thoughts, your criticisms, your everything. As long as you're not yelling at me, we're good. So yes.
Calm down, Clyde. Calm down.
We'll calm down. We'll calm down.
I mean, y'all got me hyped like this. I'm ready for people to just be like all over the place.
I think it's going to be an all over the place, but we'll find a common ground. I believe in us. Okay, we'll just dive right into it. Let's go.
Mariah's like, let's just get this over with. God damn it.
I'll just start. I didn't like this episode. I'll get it out of the way. My hot break.
Cool.
Here's the thing. I wanted to like this episode. I am always willing to be wrong. I am willing to say, you have a concept. I'm not sure where you're going. I'm along for the ride. And the things that I wish happened in this episode didn't. The explanations didn't. I think potential of this setup didn't happen either. And so I think it was just a lot of really lazy tropes and a lot of really racist undertones. And Henry Alonzo Meyer, I don't care if this stops me from ever getting a job on a show that you work on. This was bullshit. And you're the showrunner, and this is motherfucking bullshit. And I'll talk about it more, but that's my hottest of hot freaks.
Shots.
Shing.
Wow.
Who's next?
Who's next?
Clyde, why don't you
I'm willing to hear other listen, we'll get into there were things I loved. Patton Oswalt. I thought Doug was a great character and underutilized. I liked him and Una. I wish that it wasn't made to be a fat joke about someone who's actually a really nice and kind person, and that could have been explored more deeply, and there was probably a better joke than a sight gag of a hot guy moving away and then it's Patton Oswalt. It's just lazy.
That was dumb.
Yeah, lazy. Lazy. Anyway, go ahead.
Since Paul threw it at me, I probably should have said not it. That's on me. Look, you had me at black dress with a high slit. I don't know what else to say. Like,
I love the dance sequence.
Dance battle.
I like dance battle.
I mean, it was amazing. So I can't say I hated the episode because I thought it was great. I thought that scene was great. My daughter actually watched it.
What?
And yeah, she came in and she's like, "Oh, what's this?" She was like, "It's Dancing with the Stars," and I was like, "No, it's better." They're dancing and they're fighting, and she was like, "Oh, this is interesting." And my son came in and he was like, "Hey, can I have?" She was like, "Sure." And like it was a moment. So for me, that was a great scene. Overall, I expected. So I'll tell you now. I watched this with the watch along, and there were people who were like, "Nope, I need to watch this by myself." And I was like, oh, really? And then I looked at what episode it was because I've had a pretty busy week. And I was like, oh, maybe I should watch this one by myself. So I came in expecting a lot of I don't like, what is this gonna be? And overall, I thought it was silly. It I think the thing that softened this for me was it was comedy, right? If they had actually taken themselves very seriously.
So you find eugenics funny?
I don't find eugenics funny.
You have a joke? You have a joke?
I don't have a joke. I got no jokes. And I honestly, if you ask me my personal opinion, could you've done the same thing without them having to be Vulcan? I think you could have. I think you could have. Every other joke and moment would have been quite personable. You could have done this a bunch of different ways. So, but if it had really gone with a serious tone, I'd probably be staying on the table calling for people's heads. But then you throw in a black dress dance battle, right? And I'm kind of torn between carelessness and a great scene that I'll always remember.
Mike, you go.
It's all over the place. I told you it was going to be all over the place.
No.
I warned you.
Okay. I like this episode. I don't think it's that deep in any way, shape, or form. However, all opinions about it are valid, and I'm willing to listen to them. Because, yeah, I think some of what the criticisms have to say about this show are actually pretty valid. But while I was watching this, I was like, I don't think this episode's about Vulcans. This is just about a bunch of humans who are reacting terribly to a dumb serum. And it's about some writers who just wanted to have some laughs and didn't really think about what they were doing and didn't really want to cause any harm or damage. That doesn't mean that they won't, unfortunately. But I don't know. I thought it was pretty funny. I thought it worked. I thought it kept getting funnier and throwing more surprises at me, and I was laughing out loud. And sometimes that's really all you really need. I was really glad to see Rebecca Romijn getting more screen time and getting centered more in this episode. She's such a wonderful comedic actor, and seeing the show showcase her more in an episode that really had everybody doing something was a delight. Mm-hmm. And kind of a huge win for the show. And I love that it was her log that bookended everything. I thought she was really funny in the log. Also, thumbs up for Lil Patton Oswalt, aka giving us all short kings the confidence that we need. I love to see it. But all in all, I'm willing to be a little more educated on the problematic stuff in this episode. But for me, just a dumb bro. I had a good time.
Hey, Mariah, can you at least agree that the Ortega scene was phenomenal? Can we agree on that? No?
That when she's like, but bacon?
No, I mean, listen, yes, the bacon is amazing. But no, when she walks to Uhura and basically reprimands her for trying to turn her brother into somebody's not I thought that was a great
yeah. We'll dive into this stuff I liked. I was just like, it's really hard for me to come out and be like, I like this episode when they're just like, your DNA makes you racist.
Maybe my issue, and I'm gonna let you go for. I think maybe my issue is I was expecting it to be so much worse. I thought I was gearing up to be so much worse. It's almost like if you think it's gonna be an F and it turns out to be a D, you're almost relieved.
I felt like it wasn't. Maybe I'm sure it can be racist, yeah, but I thought maybe it was more offensive to people on the spectrum than
I mean, yeah. So Paul, what's your hot freak? And then I'll dive into my diatribe, and then we can move past it, and I can talk. It's
gonna be a fun episode. I can't wait. Let's go.
This is such a weird seat. Normally, it's like y'all don't like something. I'm like, this episode was incredible. So I'm like, what a weird.
It needed a little bit more horror, and then Mariah might have been on board.
Yeah,
it was a horror.
We're shaking it up,
and I didn't like it.
So what's interesting is I like this throughout this whole season, especially when it was the more serialized, the more episodic episodes. I've been saying I feel like the conceit is pretty lazy. Like, like you've chosen to do something kind of like really against the rules, but then the execution of what you're trying to achieve tends to work. And I feel like this is another example of that. Like I go, like I watch this at 3 a.m. I was like, okay, well, I have to wait for the laundry to dry, so I'm watching it, and I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna. I was not looking forward to seeing it, and everything that I feared about it was exactly what it was. I was like, oh yeah, like here are these things, like with the inexplicable change of like, oh, here's your DNA, now you're an asshole, like like all of that, like that seems like real. I go like, that. With that said, I was watching it, I was going like, oh, but they've done it again with like the comedy that they chose to do and the pieces they choose to do. If you were to like look at it like from a math perspective, like, oh, they're executing. It just happens to be that if you have to accept the concept first. And so I was like, and if you, and I could see why you wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like I've seen this done before in Lower Decks and executed and accomplished far better. And so, like, I know
which episode in Lower Decks?
The episode where Mariner turns into an Orion. And then there's the episode where Tendi encounters another Orion who is in the Federation and acts like a pirate. And then he reveals he's like, I'm just acting this way because that's what I've been told Orions are like, but I'm not like this at all.
Sure.
So there's a question of like, I need someone to explain how this says your DNA makes you racist. So as soon as they turn, right? Well, one, I can't, I personally can't get over the laziness of not wanting to do their hair twice to let them pop up with the ears and have the same hair, which I think would have been a better sight gag if we're talking about lazy comedy. Because how does Uhura go from fro to braids?
Like, how do you know? It's a serum.
First, okay.
It's a serum.
Because it's just
okay. I'm just gonna say, like,
that's the
as
joke.
A black guy on the show,
yeah,
that's a 4 or 5 hour process. I'm just saying. Like,
I'm like, it could be a wig. I get it, but she didn't drop down to the floor and put on a new wig.
Yeah.
If there's
that's
a
the
serum,
joke, though.
I know a whole bunch of people that would be like, sign me up, because
that is your call out at the beginning of this episode to not take this episode seriously, because we're just.
But it would have been a better sight gag for them to pop up and have all these different features, and then have their OG hair, and then the next walk down the hall is like all the cool Vulcan stuff.
I disagree. I think the sight gag of all their extremely, ironed hair was pretty funny.
Anyway, okay.
I got distracted by the costumes. I thought the costumes were awesome.
The costumes are great. Again, hair, costumes, everything executed on this show is executed at like an incredible degree, and like the craftsmanship is there. I think this was lazy comedy writing, and that's why I think maybe that's what I'm most offended by is the lazy comedy writing.
It's not even the eugenics. It's
I mean, the eugenics is number one too, is lazy comedy writing.
This was not smart. It was dumb,
and
but it was
why
funny.
I'm mad because they do smart comedy on Star Trek, and they've done it before.
Sure.
Like the musical episode, the the Lower Decks crossover episode. This show takes big swings, and I'm around for a big swing. And I follow through on so many of these episodes, and I ride for it. But again, I looked every episode I've had a major problem with. Henry Alonso Myers has been the co-writer on, and so now he is on my shit list.
Oh, okay.
And he's the showrunner. He's the showrunner. So I'm like, you have a vision that you know how to execute, and you obviously have writers that know how to execute it. But whenever he seems to step in and get involved in Spock's storyline, he mucks it up in a way that I don't enjoy, and I don't know what his fascination is with biracial mixed race people, and specifically with Spock. But anyway, as soon as they all turn, they go, but we're 4.5 Vulcans because Spock is only half, which one is already like a deeply eugenically based phrase, because when you break down people into their percentages of who they are rather than who they actually are, it's essentially a dog whistle for white supremacists. And like, I can't help but watch this show in the world that we live in, where we have Sydney Sweeney doing an ad that says, I have good genes. Look at my blonde hair, blue eyes, and my fake boobs. Like it's a problem. And I looked, and sure, they wrote this season and put up this season when Joe Biden was in office, but Trump was still running for president, and the rise of right-wing fascism has been going on for the last 8+ years. And so I think if you're going to try to make, like, this could have been such a fun fish out of water, take a step in my shoes, funny episode about learning about how these characters have deep flaw. Like Chapel and Ahura, I think, have the only 2 successful character arcs that use the fact that they were Vulcan in this period.
Yeah.
Chapel realized it without her, with too much ability and the and lack of control of her emotion and desire for work, she would not have a personal life. And Ahura realizes in her pursuit of perfection of communication, she's lacking nuance to let people be who they are. Those are great lessons to take from these characters. And I think if it had been done successfully without them continually shitting on Spock, because the only reason other Vulcans shit on Spock is because they learned to not like humans. These are all humans who have been turned into Vulcans. And so that would be like, if I don't even know, there's no comparison, right? Because it is a different species. So like, yes, my brain's processing things in a different emotional state. Great. That's something fun to play with in a comedic effect. But the fact that you're taking a culturally learned thing, the racism, and implanting it into someone's DNA is what makes it eugenics, because you're saying that based on what you are as an inherent being is going to give you a perspective on who is less than in the world. Anyway,
all that is really fair and really well stated, and I agree with everything you just said. And I just, I think they could have done this, even though I found a lot of it funny, just not thinking about it or engaging with it with any depth from my end. They could have definitely done this in a smarter and more sensitive way that would have been a lot more Star Trek, if I'm just being frank.
yeah.
However, but if, the episode at the beginning with how cartoony they just hand waved the serum, how cartoony they just hand waved this mission that we set up this whole serum for is over in 5 seconds. Let's get to the shenanigans. How they communicated that so quickly and stupidly was just an early signal of like, hey, don't take this one seriously. This one's a fluke. We're going to fuck around. And so I kind of met it at that level and I had a good time.
I would say, I would say that I went into it like with a similar mindset of like, this is going to be terrible. For me, like I go like, oh, the things that you are choosing to, like, for example, like just because I'm the canon person, why would they be logical? Like, like Vulcans have to train to be logical.
Well, there was a lovely little hand wave piece of dialogue they put in that was just in voiceover, which I know they put in later. I think after the backlash to this, after Comic-Con, was Una being like, the virus was in the serum was created using the years of training from Spock, which then doesn't even make sense, because then if they're using Spock's DNA to clone them, wouldn't they all be mixed race Vulcans?
That makes it even funnier to me that it's just stupid.
It made no
doesn't
sense
make
to
sense.
me.
This whole thing made no sense. Like, I mean, from premise, it was like, oh, we have to go down and be Vulcans because we can't let this planet that already knows about aliens know there's other aliens. And also, is Spock the only Vulcan in the area? Like, could Spock just go down with like one other Vulcan? Because they completed it in 5 minutes with 5 Vulcans. So what would it have taken him?
Clearly Doug was available, and then you had the captain, the captain.
There ain't others hanging out on shore leave and this pleasure planet.
They had dinner with Captain Admiral what's his face.
Right. None of this episode is lazy writing.
but Palea was funny, and I enjoyed Scotty.
No, there's
Palea was like the stealth MVP again.
Yeah, but like, did you have a problem?
Black dress.
Yes.
I liked the dance sequence.
Yeah, it was great.
So I felt like, like for these episodic episodes, I think they've all been lazy, but like, is it because like eugenics that makes it like more problematic? Because yes, I agree it was lazy, but like the episode last week and all the episodes.
No, last week was also not. I know I wasn't here. I also didn't like last week's episode.
But yeah, I look at it and I go like, yeah, it's the way there's only been one other episode that I would equate this to, and that is Next Generation. Clyde, what is it? Do you remember what first season? The most cringe
We don't
episode
talk
of Star
about
Trek.
that
no,
episode.
no,
We
no,
do
no,
not
no.
talk
It's not
about
that bad.
episode.
Come on.
No,
like,
it wasn't
like,
that bad.
Like, and for
I don't
me,
want to
like,
say it. I can't say for you, Paul.
Uh-huh.
This was not on that level. But Mike and I have also talked about that writer whose name is like Kathleen something. She did some episodes on Stargate that was probably even worse. So
like,
yeah,
but like to Mariah's point, like, and I go like, hey, you know, you are half, so that makes you not. That's like, you know, it's like in today's day and age, that is a real problem.
Mhm.
Like, you know, like to be to such that, like, you know, you are the sum of your genetic parts, you know, and like any mixture of that, it's a dangerous way to go, and
Yeah.
to make a joke about that has to be so
Smart.
spot on, No, it just has to be perfect, and like, you know, and
I actually don't think you should. I just don't think you should. Like that was the part of the
Oh,
episode that I was really bothered with, and the fact that they kept coming back to it
oh,
time and time again. I was like, to me, that was the part where I go, it wasn't funny the first time. I didn't find it funny the second time, but you keep saying it. Like
Yep.
if you just keep saying it, it'll get funny. And that was just like, can we move on? Like
Yeah.
that was the
100%.
cringiest moment to me.
And so, like, for me, like, I go like, I am a person who can accept a racist joke. I will laugh at a racist joke if it
I
is
won't.
okay. Like, but if the joke has to transcend the cost of its, you know,
Yeah.
like it has to be so good, and so, like, you can say it, it just needs to hit.
I think the other.
You go, Mariah.
Yeah, I was like, I think it's like there's an interesting. Well, one I was going to point out, they've also like in canon we have multiple options where this like personality change doesn't happen. We have Mariner, we've got the Orion guy, but also we have Nemesis, where there's Shinzon, the biological clone of Picard, and so it really tells you that like if it's all how you're born. Anyway, I could go on, but I was going to go back to your
versus nurture.
Yeah, nature versus nurture. But I was going to go back to your point, Paul, is that I don't know if anyone else has seen like Mark Maron's been going on like a bunch of the bro podcasts and like reading them all for filth lately, and it's been chef's kiss. And his point, and I think the point here is he's like, when does it stop? You know, like when are these right-wing like comedians, air quotes if you're listening, comedians like stop making the jokes about trans people, stop making the jokes about immigrants, stop making the jokes about queer people, people of color, right? They're like, because he's like, you did it. Trans people don't have health care. Today, they just passed a bill in Texas saying that trans people can't use the bathroom that matches their gender identity. And like, you know, we also lost access to abortion pills in Texas today. Sorry, it was a really rough day politically. So that's probably also why I'm like on a tirade. It's a mixture of a lot of bullshit. But like, you know, these comedians continue to make these jokes and you're just like, and he's like, at this point, you're a hack. He's like, that was hack behavior when he's like, when I was coming up in the comedy scene. And so I recommend like going and watching, you don't have to watch the whole episodes because I wouldn't make anyone do that to themselves to watch any of those guys, period. But when he's reading for filth, Howie Mandel and like Bobby Lee and all these guys and essentially being like, how are you making these jokes at this expense of a community? And I think, you know, a friend of the pod, Giraffe, put up like an Instagram story today saying that she's not even reviewing this episode because it really hurt her feelings. Like she's deeply hurt by this episode as a biracial person, and to have, you know, her identity continue to be made the butt of a joke, specifically in a show that she really loves. And so I think it was, you know, she's like, so I'm gonna just take the night off and
it's a bummer.
Talk about it. Yeah.
Like I think of the TOS episode where black and white people, half black, half white. Do you remember this episode?
Frank Ocean. Yeah.
I forget what it's called. I go like, that was an amazing episode talking about race. You know, like, and so like I do believe it can be done, you know, well. You just have to do it well. Like, you know, like it, you know, like it's a dangerous thing to talk about things that are hot buttons without the care that, like, you know, or understanding or whatever that so in a way, like, what it is from this choosing to write this, like, I could see someone go, I want to make a statement. Let's make a statement, and let's do something. And I would be totally fine with that. I don't feel like the intent of this was to move the needle. I think the intent of this was just to have a laugh. And when you punch down, it's not funny.
Let me ask a question, because
Yeah.
I love what we're saying, right, Paul? Particularly, I think if you're gonna make a statement, I'm all for making a statement. I don't think comedy is necessarily the best.
Oh, I think
medium.
comedy is the best medium.
But I think it takes an incredible amount of skill and nuance that I'm just gonna be honest, I don't think most people have. So
right. I agree.
I guess my question here is this a situation where the writers were looking for the funny and they didn't see the problematic nature of it, and so they were just ignorant to what might happen?
Like,
partially, I think so.
It reads that way to me. It reads that way to me.
Same.
Have y'all seen the interview with Daniel Kim that's been making the rounds too lately? Daniel Day Kim, and he is saying, there's been an uptick in like there's a couple articles that were like TV right now is essentially been in this big flux of anti-DEI, where they're like, TV is now white, young, hot, and horny. Like that's like what TV shows are getting greenlit right now. And so the interviewer kind of brought up some of that, and then Daniel Day Kim made the point of like, well, yes, we were living in a time where more of us got to be on screen, but he's like, it was a bit of an overcorrection because we weren't seeing those people actually. Like there wasn't Korean American writers writing for Korean Americans to be on TV. It was, I'm going to write a script that's an ensemble. We're going to put characters of color in here, but then probably not actually have representation of those characters, like cultural heritage in the room. And so it ends up being a not as authentic representation on TV as it could be. And I do, like, to your point, Clyde, like I think the shows, specifically comedy shows that do, like Jake Johnson is up every night doing stand-up about the worst things happening in this world and making it really funny and really digestible and full of actual facts. Like the writer's room on John Oliver, I think are nailing it every single week. And there's episodes when I go, I can hear that he has writers of color in his room because there are jokes that would not come out of a British man's mouth without them, like, and so I think like comedy is a way to trick. The reason we have, not to put it all in this, but the reason we have marriage equality as it currently have marriage equality is because we went from Will and Grace to Modern Family. Having representation of healthy relationships written by people, gay people, and putting gay relationships on screen is why we are where we are today with social change. Now, unfortunately, that has shifted. And that's why I think I get so mad when shows like Trek that I love. And here's the thing, I'm going to watch the rest of the season. I'm not saying like, fuck this show, I'm never going to watch it again, blah, blah, blah. But I do hope that they listen to the massive amounts of feedback that have come out about this episode and really think about how they can do better. Because like, I'm not someone who's like, you made a mistake and you must pay for it the rest of your life. Like, apologize, learn from it, and move on and figure out a way to like be a better person in this world. Because otherwise, what the hell are we all doing?
Clyde.
Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox for a little while.
There's a movie that no one likes but me and my daughter.
Soul Man?
We don't talk about that. No.
Bamboozled?
Also no. It came out a couple years ago. It's called The Magical Society of what is it? The
Society of Magical Negroes.
Yes, the Magical Negroes.
Yeah.
Which I thought was hilarious in how it kind of portrays this thing that, I think a lot of us in the African American community see and talk about. And that was a comedic way to kind of educate and show and poke fun at, and in a dynamic way, because it doesn't just go one way. It talks about this juxtaposition of wanting safety over authenticity. And so it's fascinating. So I do think there are ways to do it. This does feel like a miss to me, with some really interesting moments in it. right? So I don't want to gloss over the fact that there were some great moments done by some actors. And so for me, there are people on the show that are phenomenal. This was my best, this was the best episode for Scotty outside of the original introduction of Scotty. And everyone knows I'm not a huge Paul Wesley fan. And when I saw his name in the credits, I was like, why? Why do we even need him in this episode? But I actually thought he did a good job. So,
and
and yes,
I still ask why he was in this episode.
Yeah, I was like, why? Why do we
this is my favorite Patel episode.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, she finally had dialogue.
Yes.
Patel was great. She had an actual arc in this episode.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
You know I'm not a fan. This was the best one.
Yeah.
So I want to draw out the fact that there are these moments for characters who this is the hard part. I feel like we've been waiting for these moments for some of these characters all season. Patel, Scotty, Palea kills it again. Ortega's had a moment. Like there were some really great moments in this. And yet
in a bad package.
it was kind of mixed up. And I guess I'm still waiting for some of these episodes that we saw last season, whether it was the episode I struggled a little bit with was the storybook fantasy episode, which was amazing. Or as everyone knows, my favorite, Ad Astra. I'm still waiting for one like some of that, especially after the first 3 episodes we got. I was like, where are they? So
fair.
Yeah, no, like it's 10 episodes. They can't do everything.
They could do more than this.
That's also my point. Is you only have 10 episodes, and this is what you're choosing to do. Like
I can truly see the idea of this was going to be funny. Like if you're not thinking too hard about it, and you're not a person who gets persecuted for it, you go oh well, they're Vulcans. It's not like they're Earth right. people, and it's just the problem is the thing about Star Trek is it is unlike any other TV show out there. It is truly sci-fi in the sense that it is an allegory for present day.
Mm-hmm.
It has a tradition of that. And so when you do something like that, you can't just lean on what the franchise has
it's leaning
created.
Heavily on nostalgia, and I think that's the laziest part about it.
And you can't lean on its legacy, and then go but we don't want to have to deal with this part because we want to say these jokes.
Yeah, and it sucks because it's so Dana Horan, who's one of the other writers of this, she did the Space Adventure Time episode. She knows how to write a funny Trek episode, and you had everyone who was writing on Lower Decks who obviously knew how to write comedy in this world, and so it's it's achievable. I'm Tawny Newsome is writing on Academy, just bump her for a little script rewrite. You know what I mean? I was there's people in this universe who I think could have taken at the core what I think they wanted to achieve in this episode and have achieved it.
Well, so here's my thought, and I could be wrong, so you guys can let me know. I think they achieved what they're aiming for. I think the problem is aim. I think they just aimed this is what we wanted, and if you aren't a person who is sensitive to the issues that this may poke fun of, it's great. If you're not sensitive to that, but you don't.
And I think that's the problem is I don't want to frame it as if you're sensitive to that, because I think that is where you allow for what's being put on TV to essentially tell people, open the door to be it's okay to make fun of mixed race people.
What I meant to say then, the wording is there are people who are not awoke,
who don't think about this, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, who are this goes over a lot of people's heads, and they're gonna be it's a Vulcan sci-fi, blah blah blah. But
exactly.
It's your point. Star Trek has always been this allegory for our current present day,
100%.
And it's supposed to be a morality play. So what moral are you telling me?
And that's where I feel you're not doing your due diligence when you're dealing with a vehicle, an IP, an instrument such as Star Trek that has the ability and time again to talk about the ugly parts of society.
Yeah, I think what's interesting to this is some of what we're saying goes back to the idea of if you are new and this is the first thing that you see, what do you walk away with? Do you see it as just kind of weird comedy? Or for those of us who've seen Trek, we hold it to a higher standard, because Trek really, over the years, kind of the decades, has been the show that doesn't stoop necessarily to the just the whatever, and has been thoughtful, not just to say, hey, here's what I see, but it puts you in a position to challenge what you may see or may not see, that it aspires to a higher level. That wasn't the target of this, I don't think. And I think that's what I'm frustrating with is I look at Trek, and again, it's not perfect, but there are times where Trek has put us in a position to almost challenge some of our preconceived notions, right? That you'll look over and go, right? When you do talk about eugenics, when you talk about things like honor killings, there are a lot of things where there's this dialogue that comes out of the show where you go, well, how do I look at this? And let me check, like, what is my opinion on this? That wasn't accomplished. This was slapstick and not thoughtful.
And here's the thing too, if they wanted to like, if I'm going to fully view this, if I'm going to take off the Mariah's angry about the way this was structured hat, and I'm going to think about this purely as someone who watches a lot of comedy and like makes comedy, it still isn't successful. So if that's like the most successful scenes comedy wise for me were Uhura and Beto, like when she's like reading him for filth about like, you didn't plan a date, like that, that scene was great. And then Una stumbling over herself in the face of Doug. Those were the only two. And like, even that one, I think the other thing is like, this season's been a lot about romantic relationships, which I don't mind, but it's like, it edges into that soapy box, which gives me a little worry about, it's like the Riverdale-ness, the OC, and like I watched all those shows, Skins, like those like youth shows that are all about relationships, and that's kind of all you're really getting at and stuff. But I'm like, and then Marie Batel, like when she finally stands up for herself, I thought that speech from her was also really successful. Again, not really comedy. Also, like I watched Jessie Gender has a good breakdown of this too. She goes very in depth, and she talks about how like Pike essentially like just reveals all of this personal information without any consent from her to her boss. And it's like, let me tell you about all of her medical problems. And then just tries to like wipe it off with like, well, because I'm being logical, he needs to know those things. And it's like, well, actually the logical thing would be to like maintain your relationship with this person that you're in a relationship with. Like, I'm assuming that there's some logic fallacies in this episode. And so like, and then I think the dance fight sequence was successful, but also felt like, I feel like they thought of that idea. There's like things where I'm like, you thought of this piece, and you said, how can we put an episode with these things together? And then didn't successfully weave them together.
Yeah, they had to seed things that we're going to see in future episodes, the next two episodes, like bringing up the idea that Lon's connection as a augment, it could be actually problematic, right? And
not problematic. She's perfect. Leave her alone.
Well, which comes back again to the DNA thing, like because you're an augment, you're naturally sinister. Like anyway, go on.
No, you were born a villain, so you must be villain.
Right? Yeah, that's a problem. But they also seeded the Batel is a lot stronger and better at combat now. They were seeding things that we're going to see in the next few episodes. But yeah, Paul, your thought about the intent of this episode is so spot on, because it was just like, wouldn't it be cool if everybody had pointy ears and it was slapstick? So that like there was no thought put into this, really. It was just goofiness.
And for me, like, I at 3 o'clock in the morning, like I could shift in that, because I came into it like, it's gonna be ham fisted. But like, you kind of sometimes you judge things for what it's trying to do, and from that level, I go like, well, it really hit. I wish they would hit more. I wish they would be a little better. but like, I hope they don't make a live episode like this, because it's not, like
Yeah.
like there was a part during the dance scene where I go like, oh, this show has its own tone. Not this episode, but the show. Like, I wonder if they're trying to create a tone that is outside of its connection to the rest of the canon, or the IP. Like, and I was like, oh, this is very interesting because, like Lower Decks does that, right? Right off the bat, we're a comedy, we're animated, boom.
Mhm.
And this was like, oh, this is almost sitcom-y, in some aspects, which is not something that I would say Star Trek is. I think like TOS is like or generally soapy with pew pews.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so, and this one, I go like, as they were dancing, and like, was there a move where like La'an was in the air, and it doesn't matter. I was like, oh, this is per per what you said earlier, like Riverdale is, a shipping show.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, Mariah, now you got me really thinking about it and looking and going.
Maybe that
I
dress
think what
wasn't
we
that great.
No, the dress. There's nothing wrong with the dress. Dress is great.
The dress that is are great.
Yeah, but I think what we're used to is a show that is sci-fi, that is true sci-fi. It's got lots of sci-fi jargon, and we're solving problems, and there's exploration. There's a lot there. And then every so often we get a Minuet episode, a Vosh episode, a Laura Brahms episode. Like, we get these sprinklings, but it's not consistent. They're almost never back to back. And then there's never really a thread. There's just this pop of color to give dimension to these characters that we largely see in a workplace drama, right?
Yeah,
so I hate to put it like that.
No.
but
It's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. Workplace drama.
That's not what this is, though. This is like
Friends in Space.
It's Friends in Space. Like, it
But
kind of
is. Your point, Clyde, like, we essentially got, so like this episode is like this overly, this is their shot at trying to be comedy writers. And then, we had What is Starfleet? We're going to pretend we're in a documentary, and it's going to look a little bit like The Office, but it's going to be serious. And then we had the Set Who Ate It. We've had a lot of these, like, and not even in the episodic way. It's like hyper stylized episodes. But I think that's what I'm craving, is like, I feel like we haven't landed out of like a difference. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, back to what hegemony, and even
it does
like,
feel like they're
to
just
come
experimenting a lot this season and not really doing the show. Right?
Because Clyde is all into dance now. I used to do a lot of dancing. I met my wife swing dancing, and the type of swing dancing that I used to do was called Lindy Hop. It's still called Lindy Hop. Anyway, in Lindy Hop there is this 8-count basic. And you learn this basic, and you're like, okay, you do this, but then everyone wants all these variations of like, oh, do this, and you can do the spin here, you could add this, blah 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 blah. And then like a very good dance instructor, kind of like top level instructor, like taught this class once. He goes like, you need to do the basic, and the reason why you need to do the basic is because it will highlight the variation. Without the basic, you'll never see what it's supposed to be. And so, like, now that like we have gone through all these episodes that are off center, like, we're losing the plot of what in some ways what Strange New Worlds is.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Basic. Mm-hmm. No, it's similar. I do like dance. I took salsa dancing for a little while, and it's a very similar. There's a 8-step basic, and you practice that, and that becomes everything, and then you do spins, and much like you're saying, Paul, I see what you're saying. That is a perfect analogy, because if you just have a bunch of turns and spins and no basic, it looks chaotic.
Like, you can't see what it's trying to do.
because I literally I had to go back and remember where we even left Batel's storyline, because I was like, wasn't she like kind of like not doing good? Had that whole like Gorn freak out moment with Spock, and then like had to be maintained. Like I was like, I'm having trouble following.
She's fighting the dead nurse.
Yeah, like fighting dead. But I was like, I'm having trouble keeping up with some of what seems to be major plot points of the season, because we've kind of iced them on the shelf for so long in favor of doing these like these spins into different genres. And look, I like when things are campy and like that is like the Trek that I love. But to like the point everyone's kind of making, it's like we had Space Adventure Hour and we had What is Starfleet and 4.5. It's like we've had too many. It's a very special episode.
Yeah, like you know what series did this? Like, you know, that I love for it doing it because it was just so brazen. Smallville. Like Smallville had its formula, like, you know, for the first 5 seasons, and then they made a realization. They go like, oh, there's no real internet yet, you know. People who watch Smallville are at home on Friday anyway, so we can do anything. They're gonna watch us. We can do so that every week could be, oh, we're gonna do a Saw episode. We're gonna do like this episode. So
a zombie episode.
For the next 5 seasons, they just decide go like, oh, what do we want to do? Well, we'll just make it like that. And the formula was always hit though. Like, you know, like Clark does one mini special effect. One mild special effect, and then at the very end he solves it with one big special effect. And it as long as you hit that, like, you could do whatever genre you want. And it was crazy. I was going, what are they doing? And it 5 seasons they were able to keep this up. 5 seasons, and these are 20. That's 100 episodes. Because these were 100 episodes. They could just do whatever they want. We are at number 30. And we've had like a musical episode. We've had, you know, all, you know,
crossover.
Like all these episodes. Like, this would be like in the old days in the 90s. We would be in like the early parts of season 2. Yeah, like we haven't created enough of a what you call it, a baseline to really carry all this.
And like I like when TV shows remind me that they're TV and use like the power of like it's the magic of TV. Like my favorite, I know I've said it on the show before, but my favorite show of all time is 6 Feet Under. I rewatch it every single year. I think but it's a show that from jump, the first episode introduces this idea of magical realism. Now, does every episode have a piece of magical realism in it? No, because they like sprinkle it in for the effect of like pushing forward a bigger plot point. So I'm currently in my rewatch for the year. So I'm in season 1, and there's like a series of one of the characters is it's about a family who runs a funeral home, and so often the characters interact with the dead people that come in like in their mind, but we get to see it on screen. And so one of the characters is gay and trying to decide if he's going to come out to his mom or not, and a person comes into the funeral home who's been killed for being gay, and so he keeps seeing him in these big moments of trying to test him when he's a man of faith, and how does it interact when he's in his relationship with God and the church, how does it interact with his family. And so like we get to see those special moments because they're using it for the effect of like, this is the inner struggle of this character, and we're letting you know visually, so he doesn't have to say it. We're using this as a way to visually say it. And so I think like I think Space Adventure Hour and like some of these other fun ones, like the musical episode, they've managed to be like, this is special for a reason, right? I think especially the fantasy one was a lot about Mbenga's daughter and how to process grief and how to process loss. And so it was like, we're going to use this like quote unquote very special episode in this unique format to kind of like highlight this very universal theme through this character. So it has to be special for a reason.
It's cool, but you know what I need? Here's what I need.
Pew-pews and black dress.
No, I mean, I love the pew-pews and some space fighting, but no, what I need is, can we go to a planet? Can we meet an alien race? Can we solve their problem in 45 minutes and then go back and then fly off to the next? Like, you're supposed to be on a 5-year adventure. Right now, you're hanging out at a space dock, playing Vulcan waiting to go on vacation and having romance montages.
But to be fair, but to be fair, like I agree with you 100%. When you have 20, when you have 22, when you have 25 episodes, you have 10.
Yeah, but in 10, you could have 10 really incredible experiences traveling somewhere in space, right? Like,
again, Lower Decks did it. I'm not saying. I think I've firmly come down that Lower Decks is the best new Star Trek show we've ever had.
It is.
I'm still gonna say Discovery, but
I love Discovery. But it's like
the Strange New Worlds.
I feel like the longer I've been watching stuff and sitting on it, I go back and rewatch Lower Decks more often, and I think about those characters the most.
I will tell you this: of all the shows, Lower Decks is the one season after season that surprised me more, and then every new season, my expectations would be raised for the quality, and it would hit or exceed those expectations. With Strange New Worlds, I feel like every season my expectations are getting lower, and that's why I'm at the point where like they put this episode out, and I'm like, yeah, sure, let's go.
Well, I think to that point, Mike, I think when we were first watching the first season of Strange New Worlds, there was some conversation about whether or not this was the best new Trek show, period.
Yeah, sure.
And there was some excitement about it. And we were like, wow, this is amazing. And I think they teased us with this idea of like, here we're going. And then I don't know what happened. The formula broke. Somebody said, yeah, I know what we've done, but let's just do something. Let's just go left and try something completely different.
Well, I think season 2 really did some pretty interesting things. Like one is they gave us the hot dog with no condiment episode, and they gave us music
food,
and then they gave the musical episode. So 2 of the 10 were these like really extreme, like, and I think fairly popular, episodes.
Yeah. But I also think I still think the best episode of the show so far has really been Ad Astra per Aspera, and like it's
thank you.
It is
stop it season 2 again, but like,
but it's good. It's good because it is the ethos of the show. It's giving you a moral quandary to think about and to process, and it was done well, and it was acted well, and the outfits were great, and the sets were beautiful. It was like everything everything I wanted.
It's Star Trek. Sure. It's Star Trek. Yes, Mike. Yes.
But like, I think for all of it, like, remember we started the season going like, this is an amazing season. Everything is so high quality.
Yeah, I mean, Hegemony, Wedding Bells, Shuttle to Confuri, Space Adventure Hour, like I was having a great time the first half of this season, and it's a bit of a dip, which is hard when we do only have 10 episodes to but I also know, so apparently 4.5 Vulcans was the first episode they wrote post strike.
Sure.
And so I'm just like, were y'all just like real rusty? Like what's going on?
I just think like, I think people
also of note, Henry's written all of my least favorite episodes. I'm just saying.
What's some other episodes? Name some other episodes.
Oh, this is just going to be Mariah shitting on Henry
the documentary one?
No, he wrote Hegemony Part 1. Which you didn't like? It was fine. But it was basically going off of, it was the finale, so it's always like
what episode did you not like?
Charades.
Which one's Charades?
That's the one where Spock has to like host the
sure
his in-laws.
Vulcan Teapot.
Teapot.
You're right, yeah.
But wait, wasn't Amanda in that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Amanda's great.
She's great.
And Charades, and there was the other one. Hang on. The Broken Circle.
You guys, I think the problem is that it's just kind of like a bunch of procedural CBS writers that are trying to get their jollies off on this show.
But no, my thing is like, I love Davy Perez, and like I think Anitra Johnson is so exciting that she's gone from like being a writer's assistant to being a writer, and so it's like in this show, I think Dana is a strong writer. Davy's my favorite, and then Bill Wolkoff I think is also a really strong writer and came out of I think was also in the Discovery Room. So but I've seen like the losses. Someone brought it up, like the 2 writers who were supposed to write the Section 31, the movie that shall not be named anymore. Erica Lippolt and Bo Young Kim, who were incredible Discovery writers and worked on a bunch of the comic books. Like they wrote K-pop Demon Hunters. So like I feel like we lost some good writers from the franchise.
And also a couple things. I resisted seeing K-pop Demon Hunters for a long time.
It's
having
hot.
watched it,
It's the hotness.
It's amazing.
It's the
But
hotness.
I think
you're golden, Clyde. Clyde, you're golden.
Hey, my little soda pop. The thing about K-pop Demon Hunters is that they did a really good job of weaving in an interesting message inside the show, which is I think what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And so I do look at that and go, I think there is some talent that we've lost. I do question whether or not, I don't want to look at the writers, but I'm wondering if Paramount's in an interesting time right now. I wonder if there's been some direction that has caused this. Like, don't be so controversial. Like, go for what's popular.
Yeah.
Because I also look back at
make waves.
I think
this season was approved like 2 years ago.
But the thing about, I feel like Paramount's been in this turmoil for a while. I look at, and when I think about Trek, and we joke about this, we joke about like every couple episodes or every few episodes in Voyager, Harry Kim is going to be on trial for something he didn't do, right? Like there's always a courtroom scene. There's always a who did it. There's these certain tropes, and we joke about that. But I think at the end of the day, we love them, and they're done well, and they feel like home. And I feel like now we're at a place where people are going, okay, we can't do those. And I'm thinking, no, do those, just do them well, and then add some new flavor, new frosting to them. And I think you'll be on the right track instead of going, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go real left and just try something completely different.
Like I would say this, like, like I'm a believer that like we do not have a formula, even with all the Star Trek that we have, for what a 10 episode season should look like. Like I think we've had hundreds of episodes of like 22 episodes of of what Star Trek can be, but to be a satisfying 10 episode season, I've not seen any non Lower Decks series that has given me a good season, like a really.
I mean, I wonder if it's like, I think it's also just like, perhaps it's just I mean, Clyde, you kind of brought this up, or someone said, like, is this just the CBS procedural writers? And I am wondering if it's because the Lower Decks room was comedy show writers, and comedy shows have always typically had shorter episode orders, right, from dramas. And so it is an interesting conundrum of being like, is this honing in these, is essentially like you're giving people a puzzle that they've never really had to put together before in this particular way. And so it's harder for them to make that successful. I doubt it, because these are successful writers who work in a variety of the industry. But it is interesting from like a showrunner perspective, however, is like, and not to, Henry has done great work. I've been dogging on him a lot, but
you have. Like,
I have.
You
but, it's a man in power. I'm going to rage about it, but like,
you should send him a ham.
But he's working,
an edible arrangement or something.
But it's like Charmed and like Ugly Betty, these shows that used to have these bigger episodic orders. And now it's someone who has to be like, what story are we telling in a season? I mean, I've made this critique about like Ryan Murphy before. I think like the first season of American Horror Story is the best season because it only had 8 or 10 episodes. And I think there are some writers, if you give them different boundary boxes, are better at different things.
Yeah,
similarly, like I think like White Lotus with Mike White, I think the first season was the most successful because there was a boundary. You had to use all these characters. They had to interact with each other due to COVID like restrictions in one place. And I think as soon as the world expanded, the show lost a little bit of its special sauce.
So are you saying that you want fewer episodes of Star Trek and that would make it better?
It needs to be no. I think whoever's running the show needs to know how to make 10 good episodes and tell a whole story in 10 episodes instead of taking someone who's really good at making a whole story in 22 episodes and being like, now you only have 10, do the same job. I think it's like such a big gear shift
I think it's like the difference between writing a novel or to a novella, or
a
maybe
comic book to a graphic novel. Like it's like
Sure.
there's all these different variations of like how have you exercised this skill set.
Mhm.
And I think like Henry's had incredible successful shows, and so obviously knows how to do that. But I will say almost all of them were back when you did get 22 episodes. So it's like if you're going to put someone in charge of a show and they're really good at making 22 episodes, give them 22, or like think about how you're structuring it.
So what I think I hear you saying is if we had 22 episodes of Strange New Worlds, we'd probably be looking at a much better, more successful season 3.
Depends on who's making it.
Depends on who's making it. But yeah, I think it's an interesting thing to think about, I think, structurally in entertainment, period.
I still think season 3 is still pretty good, guys. It's still
I do
pretty.
too.
Yeah, I think it's still pretty solid.
I think it started out really strong, and since then it's left me going, what?
But like you understand, we're talking 8 episodes, right? Like you're saying
Yes.
like like the first 4 episodes were really strong, and then the next 4 were like going from like mid to like I don't like. I mean, that's,
Yeah, but
it's-
that's like say if you're a sports team and you start the season off 4-0 and then you lose
oh,
4
I-
games in a row, I'm looking at you like, okay, well,
I get it,
this
but
this doesn't look good.
I challenge you to go to any Star Trek series and look at the first 8 episodes and go like, oh, these were all hot.
No,
I'm just
I
saying,
think everybody knows I'm a TNG fan. I think the first season of TNG is hard to watch.
Yeah.
And then somewhere in the middle of season 2, they really figured it out, and it got great.
8
But
hot episodes.
And that's like 30 episodes of like what?
But I think it's also what's hard though right now, right? Is like we did used to get shows that could figure themselves out. Similar, like I love Parks and Rec. The first season of Parks and Rec is not a very good season of TV, but it gets to be a really great series of TV. But
major course correction, right?
Major course corrections.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're done. And like they were able to really like change things up. And like unfortunately, like we don't really let shows do that anymore. Like I was like, sometimes I stop watching shows I like because I'm worried they're not going to get a second season, and I wait for them to get it before I finish it. Like I started Deli Boys, which is really good if anyone's looking for like a fun, like kind of it's definitely bloody, just FYI, crime comedy. But like I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to get attached to these characters because this feels like a show they're going to cancel. But it just got renewed for a second season, and I'm so excited.
Strange New Worlds is guaranteed at least 2 more. Am I right?
Yeah.
So they'll have 4, and then but season 5 is going to be shortened. I think they're only getting 6 episodes for the last season.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
Mariah,
guys,
it's interesting you say that.
quick,
I think
I have to bounce.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
bye, Paul. Have a good dinner.
Yeah. Bye, friends.
Bye, friends.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'll say this, Mariah. I think what you're saying is something that is like a big thing that people are dealing with. I was having a conversation with my mother, and I can't remember what the show was. I was like, "This is a great show. Like, I think you'll really enjoy it." And she was like, "Well, what is it?" I was like, "Well, it's just the first season." She was like, "Has it been renewed yet?" And I was like, "No, not yet." And she's like, "Well, I'm not gonna do it." I was like, "What?" I was like, "It's great though." And she's like, "Yeah, but I don't want to get invested in something that's only going to be a first season." I think that's a big thing that people are dealing with, and I wonder if that's having an impact on how people are writing. Like they're trying to write to make sure they get a second season.
There's like a famous story about how Freaks and Geeks were like they knew they were going to probably get canceled earlier than they would want to, and so they shot the finale. They were like they wrote and shot the finale like midway through, so they knew exactly where they wanted to end the whole series, and they just kept that in their back pocket so that it was done.
I didn't know they did that. That's great.
Well, the Chappelle show, Dave Chappelle said that they didn't think that they were ever going to even make it through the first season. So they treated every season like, look, this is going to be our last season. So let's go for it. But we're going to end this thing like we're never coming back. And I think there's shows that do that. They're going like, well, we're just going to go for it.
What's happening with Strange New Worlds, especially this season, with all these zany episodes and left to feel or high concept episodes, reminds me of that old show News Radio. They always thought they were going to get canceled every year, so every finale was just bizarre. Every season finale, the first season finale, all of a sudden took place on the Titanic, and they were all people who worked on the Titanic, and then it hit the iceberg and they all died. And the second season, they thought they were going to be canceled. So the finale was they were all of a sudden in space on a spaceship, and then they flew into the sun, and then they died. And that every finale ended up being like, we're probably going to get canceled, so let's do something crazy. And it kind of feels this season like, well, we don't have that much left, so let's get our jollies out and make some weird episodes.
Yeah. Anyway,
All right.
yeah, we'll see next week. Alan B. McElroy wrote next week's episode, who's a big horror writer. And then the finale is also Dana and Davey, our horror combo again. So I think we're
awesome.
I didn't see a log line or a trailer for the next episode.
I didn't
know
either.
what it's going to be. Okay.
No, I haven't seen anything.
Surprises.
Surprises. All right, we shall see. Well, thanks for hanging with us, guys. I know it was we try to be pretty positive over here, but sometimes you got to just let your feelings out. And I have big feelings this week.
And Kern, Wanda, Choopy, thanks for rolling with us. Lynn, great to see you in the chat. This has been JC. It's been a PW. Yeah, it's been a good chat.
If you guys are if we do have listeners that are only listening on audio, that's great. But I really want to remind you and invite you to join us live. It's fun.
Yeah, join us, hang out. It's a good time. We will see you all next week. Until then, live long and prosper. Bye-bye.
Matashta.